Good morning, dear students. Today I'll be teaching you Introduction to the Thorax, and we will also learn about osteology of ribs. Now, thorax is a part of the trunk which extends from the root of the neck up to the abdomen. It is a part of the trunk which extends from the root of the neck up to the abdomen. So it lies between the neck and the abdomen. Now, what are the main structures which are present in the thorax? Namely, we have the heart and lungs. They lie in the thoracic cavity. Apart from the heart and lungs, we have structures which are entering and leaving the thorax, namely the great vessels, the trachea or the windpipe, esophagus, and the thoracic duct. Now, what are the functions of thorax? It is primarily concerned with the protection of the vital organs, the lungs and the heart. Number 2, the movements of the thorax, they are primarily concerned with increasing or decreasing intrathoracic volume. The movements of the thorax primarily concerned with increasing or decreasing intrathoracic volume, so that the air is drawn inside the lungs, which is known as inspiration, and expelled from these respiratory passages, which is known as the expiration. So, I repeat, the movements of the thorax, they are primarily concerned with increasing or decreasing intrathoracic volume, so that the air is drawn into the lungs, which is known as inspiration, and expelled from these respiratory passages, which is known as the expiration. Now, to achieve these movements and to overcome the effects of atmospheric pressure, the walls of the thorax, they are strengthened by thoracic cage, which is movable. The walls of the thorax are strengthened by movable thoracic cage. Now, the thoracic cage, it consists of 12 thoracic vertebrae, which are located posteriorly, and 12 pairs of ribs, which articulate with the thoracic vertebrae posteriorly, and the sternum, also known as the breastbone, and we also have the flexible costal cartilages. The flexible costal cartilages, which unite the ribs to the sternum or to each other. So these costal cartilages, they unite ribs to the sternum. Now, the thoracic cavity, it is separated from the abdominal cavity by the musculo-aponeurotic diaphragm. It is separated from the abdominal cavity by musculo-aponeurotic diaphragm. So this diaphragm, it is attached to the lower margins of the thoracic cage. As you can see here, this is the attachment of the diaphragm. So it is attached to the lower margins of the thoracic cage, And this lower margin of the thoracic cage, this is also known as the inferior thoracic aperture or the inferior aperture of the thorax. So this is the inferior aperture of the thorax. The inferior thoracic aperture, or I can say the diaphragm, the musculoponeurotic diaphragm is attached to the lower margin of the thoracic cage, and this diaphragm, it bulges upwards so that the upper abdominal organs lie under the cover of thoracic cage. Coming to the thoracic wall, the thoracic cage is the framework of the walls of the thorax, which is formed by the vertebral column behind, the ribs and intercostal spaces on either side, the sternum and costal cartilages in front. We can make out in this diagram the sternum and costal cartilages in front, the ribs on either side, and posteriorly we have the vertebral column, mainly the 12 thoracic vertebrae. So this is about the formation of the thoracic cage. Now, functions of the thoracic cage, as we have already discussed, it protects lungs and heart, and it also gives attachment to the muscles of the thorax, the upper muscles of the upper limb, muscles of the abdomen, and the muscles of the back. Now, coming to the shape of the thorax has a shape of a truncated cone. It expands inferiorly to surround the upper part of the abdominal cavity, and it is flattened anteroposteriorly. To fit the scapulae on its posterolateral aspect. So, it is an irregularly shaped cylinder with a narrow opening, which is also known as a superior thoracic aperture. The thorax has a narrow opening, which is known as the superior thoracic aperture, also known as the thoracic inlet, and a relatively large opening, which is known as the inferior thoracic aperture or the thoracic inlet. As you can see in this diagram, this is the superior thoracic aperture or the thoracic inlet, and this is inferior thoracic aperture or the thoracic outlet. The superior thoracic aperture, it is open. It allows the continuity with the neck, whereas the inferior thoracic aperture, it is closed by the diaphragm. As we can see in the diagram, the inferior thoracic aperture, it is closed by the diaphragm. Now, the superior thoracic aperture, it is completely surrounded by skeletal elements. It consists of the body of first thoracic vertebra. The superior thoracic aperture, it consists of the body of the first thoracic vertebra, the medial margin of the first rib. You can see in this diagram the medial margin of the first rib on each side, and manubrium sterni anteriorly. So I can say these are the boundaries of the superior thoracic aperture. Anteriorly bounded by manubrium sterni, posteriorly by the first thoracic vertebra, on either side by the inner border or the medial border of the first rib. Now these are the openings which I have told you. The superior thoracic aperture or the thoracic inlet, superior or the thoracic inlet we say, posteriorly bounded by T1, on each side by first rib, anteriorly by manubrium. Now what are the contents of the thoracic inlet? It consists of trachea and esophagus. We can see the trachea and esophagus. Large vessels, mainly the brachiocephalic artery, left common carotid artery. So brachiocephalic artery and left common carotid artery, they are the branches from the arch of aorta. Then we have small vessels, the right and left internal thoracic arteries, the right and left superior intercostal arteries, and there are some nerves and muscles located in the superior thoracic aperture. Now coming to the inferior thoracic aperture, it is closed by the diaphragm, as you can see in the diaphragm, and the structures passing between the abdomen and the thorax, they pierce or they pass posteriorly to the diaphragm. What are the boundaries of the inferior thoracic aperture? Now anteriorly, the inferior thoracic aperture, it is bounded by V-shaped is formed by the xiphoid process. The anterior boundary is V-shaped and it is formed by the xiphoid process. Then 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th costal cartilages. This boundary is passing downwards and laterally from the xiphoid process. This boundary is passing downwards and laterally from the xiphoid process. This is known as the boundary which is passing from the xiphoid process downwards and laterally is known as the costal margin. Remember this term. The anterior boundary of the inferior thoracic aperture, it is V-shaped and is formed by the xiphoid process. 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th costal cartilages, and this boundary, it passes downwards and laterally from the xiphoid process, which is known as the costal margin. Posteriorly, it is bounded by the T12 vertebra, the 12th thoracic vertebra. Posteriorly, the inferior thoracic aperture, it is bounded by 12th thoracic vertebra, and on each side 7 to 10 costal cartilages. Anteriorly, as I have told you, it is bounded by xiphisternal joint. Now, structures of the thoracic wall. Thoracic skeleton includes the sternum, 12 pairs of ribs and costal cartilages. The ribs and their cartilages are separated by intercostal spaces. These are all the intercostal spaces. the ribs and their cartilages, they are separated by intercostal spaces. Then we also have the 12 thoracic vertebra and the intervertebral discs. Now coming to the osteology of ribs, there are 12 pairs of ribs, all of which are attached posteriorly to the thoracic vertebrae. And the ribs are divided into three categories. True ribs, the upper 7 ribs are attached anteriorly to the sternum by their costal cartilages. We can see in this diagram, the upper 7 ribs are known as the true ribs because they are attached to the sternum by means of costal cartilages. Then we have false ribs. The 8th, 9th and 10th pairs of ribs are attached anteriorly to each other and to the 7th rib by means of their costal cartilages. They are known as the false ribs. Then we have floating ribs. The 11th and 12th pairs have no anterior attachment. So 1 to 7 ribs are also, they are known as true ribs or vertebro-sternal ribs, you can say, attached to the sternum via the costal cartilage, vertebro-sternal ribs. 8 to 10 they are known as false ribs, vertebrochondral ribs. Their cartilages are joined to the cartilage of the rib above and via that connection to the sternum. And 11 to 12 ribs are floating ribs. They do not connect even indirectly with the sternum but have a costal cartilage on their tips, and the tips are embedded in the muscles of the abdomen. So this is about the classification of ribs. We can also classify ribs into typical and atypical ribs. Now coming to the classification of ribs, the typical and the atypical ribs. The second method of classifying the ribs, the typical and the atypical ribs. The ribs from 2nd to the 9th have same general anatomical features, so they are referred as typical rib. A typical rib, it is long, twisted, flat bone. We can classify ribs under flat bones, under the classification of bones. It is long, twisted, flat bone. Now each rib, each typical rib, remember the 3 to 9 ribs. 3 to 9 ribs are known as the typical ribs because they have same anatomical features, they have similar features, so they are known as the typical ribs. So a typical rib is long, twisted, and it is a flat bone. It has a shaft and anterior and posterior ends. The anterior are the costal end. Let me show you. This is the anterior end, also known as the costal end of the rib. This is the posterior end, also known as the vertebral end of the rib. Anterior end of each rib is attached to the corresponding costal cartilage. Then the shaft, it is thin and flattened and twisted on its long axis. It has superior and inferior borders. The superior border is rounded and smooth. If you see, this is the shaft of the typical rib. which has got superior border and the inferior border. The superior border is rounded and smooth. The inferior border, it is sharp and thin and forms costal groove, which accommodates the neurovascular bundle, the intercostal vein, artery and nerve. VAN, VAN, you have to remember the costal groove of a typical rib. It lodges the neurovascular bundle, which contains vein, artery and nerve. Now the angle of the rib is where the shaft of the rib bends sharply forwards. This is known as the angle of the rib, where the shaft of the rib bends sharply forward. So, as we can see in this diagram, the 3 to 9 ribs are known as the typical ribs because they have got same features, typical features. This is the anterior end of the typical rib and this is the posterior end of the typical rib. The posterior end is known as vertebral end. The anterior end is known as sternal end. Right? And we will see what are the parts of a typical rib. Now, the posterior end or the vertebral end, it has a head, neck and tubercle. The posterior end or the vertebral end of the rib has got head, neck and tubercle. Let me show you. This is the head. This constricted part is known as neck and a tubercle. You can see clearly in this diagram. This is the head of the rib. The constricted part is known as neck and the tubercle of the rib. And this is the tubercle of the rib. Now the head of a rib has got two facets. The upper articular facet and the lower articular facet. The lower and larger facet articulates with the body of corresponding vertebra. The lower facet it articulates with the body of the numerically corresponding vertebra. Remember that the lower articular facet, it articulates with the body of the numerically corresponding vertebra, and the upper facet articulates with the vertebra above. Coming to the neck of the rib, it is a constricted portion situated between head and the tubercle. Next, the tubercle. Tubercle, it is a prominence on the outer surface of the rib at the junction of neck with the shaft. So it is a prominence. You can see in this diagram, the tubercle, it is a prominence on the outer surface of the rib. Now, even the tubercle has got a facet for articulation with the transverse process of the numerically corresponding vertebra. The tubercle has got a facet which articulates with the transverse process of the numerically corresponding thoracic vertebra. So these are the parts of a typical rib in the posterior end. So posterior end of the typical rib has got the head, which has two facets, the superior articular facet and the inferior articular facet, right, and a constricted part which is known as the neck, and the tubercle which is present on the outer surface of the typical rib. So this tubercle, it articulates with the transverse process of the numerically corresponding thoracic vertebra. Again the same thing, the head has got two facets, the superior and inferior articular facets, the inferior larger facet. This facet articulates with the facet present on the body of the thoracic vertebra, body of the numerically corresponding thoracic vertebra. Now that is about the head of the or the posterior end of the rib. Coming to the shaft of the rib. Now shaft of the rib, it consists of two surfaces, internal surface and the external surface, also known as the inner surface and the outer surface, and a superior margin or the superior border and an inferior margin or the inferior border. The shaft, it bends forward just laterally to the tubercle at a site which is known as angle of the rib. The shaft, it bends forward laterally to the tubercle at a site known as the angle, and it also has a gentle twist around its longitudinal axis, so that the external surface of the anterior part of the shaft faces somewhat superiorly relative than the posterior part. So this is important, you have to remember. So because of this twisting around its longitudinal axis, so if you keep the rib on the surface, both the ends do not touch the surface because of this twisting. And this is the feature of this is one of the anatomical feature to identify the typical rib. Whereas atypical rib, if you keep the atypical rib on a flat surface, both the ends, they touches the ground. Now inferior margin, if you see, or the inferior border of the typical rib, it is marked by distinct costal groove. It consists of the inferior border. It is marked by a distinct costal groove which contains the neurovascular bundle. So costal groove, it always faces inferiorly. So to have a quick recap about the parts of a typical rib, the typical rib consists of vertebral end. As you can see here, this is vertebral end or the posterior end, the body or the shaft of a rib. Then we have the sternal end or the anterior end. Vertebral end consists of the head, neck and the tubercle. The body, it consists of superior border, inferior border, outer surface and the inner surface. The superior border of the shaft of a typical rib, it is thick and it has two lips, the outer lip and the inner lip. The superior border of the first rib of the typical rib has the outer and the inner lips, whereas the inner border on its inner surface, it has the costal groove which lodges the neurovascular bundle. The lower border gives origin to the external intercostal muscle. lower border, it gives origin to the external intercostal muscle.